2018 is a hell of a year. Back then, we don't have to worry about a pandemic. The dislike button is visible to everyone. I marathoned the English dub of Card Captors, and made that one Twisted Metal video which got some attention. Also, it is the year of the retro shooter revivals. That mean boomer shooters with the 90s low poly or Doom clone aesthetic. In my humble opinion, there's one game that sets the precedent of these retro shooters. Dusk. A new game by New Blood, fully released on PC in December 2018, then way later on the Nintendo Switch in October 2021. This is a fantastic shooter that everyone should play. On today's frantic episode, we'll look at its development, the builds, and how Dusk became a household name. So ladies, gents, trans and meme lords, welcome to Lost Legends, the dawn of Dusk. Before we start the episode, I want to plug in some inserts. For those who are new to the show, I have a Discord server and a subreddit called r/LostLegends. If you're interested in the show, then the best you can do is subscribe. And if this video reached a whopping 10 likes, I'll draw the killer rabbit from Monty Python taking on some cultists. Now let's begin. We begin the history with a man named David Szymanski. Back then, he had a small following making some indie horror games like The Pit and Down We Go. Then he went on making some exploration games such as The Moonsliver, Fingerbones, and The Music Machine. A while after Fingerbones was released, he began his new project, one that broke the mold from the previous 3 walking sims, and turned it to a full-blown FPS. The inspirations of Dusk started with his toaster PC he used to have, which prevented him from playing the then new hottest games, and instead playing older titles like Doom, Quake, and Chasm. That I could relate. Development began in late 2015, and for its game engine he utilized Unity. The low poly aesthetic is deliberate because he wanted to run the game on a toaster PC, which means that everyone could actually run this game, mostly. For a publisher, he chose New Blood, sent a pitch demo to their CEO Dave Oshry, and the dude loved it. Immediately, they started marketing the game, and the Dusk hype train sets off with the demo in 2017, with outstanding praise. Dusk hits early access in January 2018, and later its full release in the following December. So, one question remains: what is Dusk? Dusk is a retro throwback shooter, of course, and you play as his bearded fellow dubbed Dusk Dude, who immediately got off of them meat hooks he was hanging, regained 200 HP, and killed a pack of chainsaw-wielding redneck cultists with a pair of sickles. Then it's a wild journey where you fight your way through chainsaw rednecks, magic clansmen, shotgun scarecrows, the Combine, Wendigos, and scientific abominations through abandoned locales, industrial facilities, non-Euclidean science labs, and other dimensional horrors. All this, while an ominous voice of Jacob taunts you. Three episodes of fast-paced action, with an intricate set of weapons like the dual-wielding shotguns, the riveter, the crossbow that penetrates everything, and a bar so while listening to the game's soundtrack, composed by Andrew Holschult. This is one of my favorite tracks. On the surface, you may be thinking that this game is nothing more than a cheap Unity game inspired by Strife, Blood, and Redneck Rampage. However, this game is full of surprises on how it pulls off. Like its unsettling atmosphere, the low poly aesthetic to run your imagination on what these enemies are supposed to be, the outright spookiness, and breaking things up with some memes and other lighthearted quirks. Though my words can't do its justice, here's some balls to the wall action for a good 20 seconds, just to get this feeling on what you'll be playing. If you bought the Intruder edition, you'll get the graphic novel and the soundtrack. And out of all this, how did Dusk came to be? Time for the meat of the episode. This game has playable builds. 9 of them. You may be asking, did New Blood got hacked or something? No. New Blood released the builds as part of the Goodies DLC for the low price of free. I was worried about the dates not properly marked, but there's a text file to show you which one's the earliest. I'll go from the earliest build to the latest with anecdotes written by Szymanski. Dusk SuperEarly build. As far as I know, this is the earliest build of Dusk in existence, before the game even had AI implemented. The chasm influences are super obvious this early on, and the movement and weapons, well, they had a long way to go, that's for sure. Really interesting how almost nothing in this build made it to the final game. I'm unsure exactly when this was created, but it was sometime in 2016. Dusk Framerate Test. Made not too long after the first build, specifically to send my brother to see whether multiple enemies would tank the framerate on his less powerful PC. The enemy in this and the previous build was called the Meat Lass, and would eventually be turned into the Leatherneck in the full game. In the project, he is still referred to as Meat Lass. I'm betting that these are made as early as December 2015 to January 2016 from the looks of it. I'm putting these two builds together as the only differences between them are the working AI and more stuff on the floor. You only fool around in this tiny square room which is made for, well, testing. You get to play some of the unique weapons like the buzzsaws and the chainsaw. Your sickles don't exist, and what you have is this puny ping hammer. The riveter had a different look. The crossbow, sword, and mortar doesn't exist. The super shotgun is just a regular shotgun that pumps. The assault rifle is an M16, and the pistols are Makarovs. Oh, and there's no cigar, I checked. These walking meatbags was going to be regular enemies until it became the chainsaw-wielding Leathernecks. They die by either ragdolling or get jibbed by the explosives, buzzsaws, or chainsaw. The HUD is obviously different as you can see. The controls are, yeah, raw. You move way too fast in this small room. The earliest build doesn't use the mouse wheel to switch weapons or zoom. Both builds don't have a use key, and there's no way to die, even at 0 health. You can't even pause in these early builds either, and the way to quit is to Alt F4. Do it, it works. One surprising thing that endured all the way to the final build are a couple sound bites. The jumping, and equipping weapons. The rest are merely scrapped. Dusk's test level. This is a demo initially sent to Dave Oshry that resulted in Dusk becoming a New Blood game. It's more of a test map for various game systems, and isn't really playable as a level, but it's an interesting curiosity. To put it bluntly, this is the pitch demo. It's the first build to have a menu screen, which had some primitive options like bloom, bilinear filtering, and chunkier pixels. But the level is bare bones, just to show the mechanics, weapons, enemies, etc. Yeah, by enemies I mean the Meat Lass and this early soldier resembling the Combine from Half-Life 2. Killing the soldier without jibbing turns into a ragdolling Meat Lass. HUD is much different, featuring text that's more Dusk-like, some keys, and overall better looking than the previous. No music, but new additions like the sword, redesigned pistols, and a totem, which is an OP energy weapon that ricochets and recharges itself. Oh yeah, this is where the cigar made its appearance in these builds. Nothing else to say here. Dusk Alpha Build 1. If memory serves me right, this was the first actual test of Dusk's combat in any sorts of long form. You can see some weapons had already been replaced, and that would of course continue. The headless zombie men will eventually turn into the wizards in the final game, and the soldiers will be reworked a few times. This is the first build where the early ragdolls were replaced with the more classic death animations. As Dave stated, the death animations changed. This map is just a massive texture plane with endless respawning enemies. This combat test level is an early basis to the game's endless mode. You have the meatheads, the mangled zombies, lost souls, and the combine in this field. And you get to play with some weaponry. That fellow which is the guardian from the final game, he's harmless to the point you can walk right through him. Some new weapons include the regular pump action shotgun, the mortar, the crossbow except this one doesn't penetrate through enemies, and the unholy claw which replaced the totem. E3 2016 demo. Created as a demo for Dave to take to E3 2016 and potentially show to people behind closed doors. I don't believe this ever happened, but it's the first actual level ever made for Dusk, which is pretty cool, and also features a unique endless map, an early version of endless mode spawning. There's another anecdote in this readme. A very early demo that was created for Dave to take to E3 2016 for private showing. I don't think this ever actually happened. An interesting time capsule whatsoever. This is the first build of Dusk that has the ability to pause the game. Not only that, you have music, a level you can actually complete, and you can die. There's 2 levels, some industrial map and a barn for the newly implemented endless mode. There's nothing too fancy, it's basically what's coming together to give Dusk its own identity. About the ambient music? That ain't Holschult, but Szymanski's work. I'll mention that on the miscellaneous stuff chapter. Curiously, this is called Dusk E3 Alpha 4, skipping Alphas 2 and 3. What were these? Just some experiments, I guess, to the point they got the Guardian working and adding the bone balls. Early PreAlpha Dev build. An early incarnation of the PreAlpha demo that would end up bringing everyone's first taste of Dusk. The differences start with a small room with the iconic symbol. The HUD has changed, but the font isn't very Dusk-like. Also, we have 2 different maps. An early version of E1M1 and another industrial place for the newly added endless mode. The mangled zombies are replaced by the Duke Mages. There's the scarecrows, the soldiers are redesigned, and an updated arsenal starring the sickles akimbo. The shotgun is no longer pump action, but instead lever action. The crossbow now pierces through everything, and some balancing here and there. This level is likely designed for the demo in mind, more so for QuakeCon. You chuck objects at leathernecks at the start, and seize the super shotgun placed in the secret at the same room. After fighting enemies on the ground, you reach out to the surface, and it's a stark contrast from what you see in the final. In the final, when you reach outside, the level ends when you reach to the woods. However, this one's extended where it has a house, a small field, and the end of the level resembles a section from E3M8, as above, so below. Once you've descended, kill the last enemies and hit the switch. If this looks a bit familiar, well, you be right. Pre-Alpha. The release version of the PreAlpha demo. People love this, but I can't believe how rough it is. This is the first version of Dusk that fans got access to, via random key drops in the New Blood Discord channel. By popular request, I've included it here. That's the build you likely remember. I actually have this build on my laptop, and despite being a toaster that can't run Unity games good, it runs pretty well. This build had some updates, like some visual tweaking, changing the font to be more Dusk, and have some Andrew Holschult tunes. You can't really add more of this, it's mainly an improved version of the previous build, and yes, the crack in the room where you get the red key works properly. And you faced off the Duke brothers at the end of this demo. Dusk Dev Build 7.0. An early look at episode 1. This version of E1M1 was shorter, featured more stylized lighting in the underground section, which was intended to be a nod to Unreal, and much more driving music that was supposed to create some sort of escape action sequence feeling. We ended up deciding to focus more on the atmosphere at the beginning. There are many other differences in the subsequent levels, so although I can't be certain, I believe this may have been made specifically to send to Oshri for crits, which would obviously eventually lead to the release version. This one is closer to the early access release. The options are a bit of a mess, the endless mode is the same, and the major differences are the updated HUD and play the entire first episode, but there's no way to save. Episode 1's level design had plenty of changes, one of them being the first level where the starting room is much smaller, and the entire episode is loaded with soldiers. The soldiers from the earlier levels were replaced by Black Phillips and rats, and become a more prominent enemy type in the latter half of the episode. The level lineup, as Szymanski stated, that these can be done fairly quickly. Some level names are changed, like the Hidden Catacombs became Old Type Religion, Foothills became Sawdust, and the Outskirts Part 1 became Through the Gate. For level placement, Steamworks was placed after the Foothills, and Ghost Town was placed before the Outskirts Part 1. Only 3 levels are missing: the Cutty Mine, Creations, and the secret level, the Dim Slough. However, the last one wouldn't be called the Dim Slough, but a much different map. Anything missing? Well, there's no Black Phillips, rats, or the bosses like the Dukes and Intoxicator. There's no spooky writing on the surfaces, some secrets are missing, no ominous voice, loading screen that prompts me to enter the horror, and certain music cues like Bleeding Out in E1M2. So what about additions apart from more levels? Yeah, the fast fire totem made an appearance, but there's no proper indicator on when it's running out. This is the last time you'll see this fancy menu screen, this overlay for the HUD, and that endless map used since the previous 2 builds. As the README stated, this is a shorter adventure, and this made sense why there's no boss battles in this episode. Dusk E1MS2 demo. This build was put together specifically for the Goodies collection, letting you play the cut secret level from episode 1. This level was created very early in episode 1's development, and I decided that it didn't reach the bar quality I wanted to set, so it was ultimately replaced. The intent was to create a bleak, overcast atmosphere, similar to the Bitter Coast region in Morrowind. Since this level was never given a name until now, I decided to name it after that. Last but not least, this is not an early build, but a playable cut secret level for episode 1. It's a very short level too, you can blaze through this within 30 seconds if you strafe hop your way through. I like the atmosphere, but I do agree with Dave and say that this level is utter trash compared to the others. If this was worked on a little more, maybe it would be a fine addition to the Dusk collection. Then again, this could be a bit out of place because this level takes place in a coastline, while most of episode 1 seems to take place in the prairie region like Montana or Iowa. Then again, the game officially took place in Pennsylvania. So we're done with the builds, but there's more to come within the goodies, and it's time to turn to the next chapter. Before I get into that, here's a video of a build not shown in the goodies, and it's dated all the way back in December 31st, 2015.
Hello everyone, I am just going to show off some of the things that I have added into Dusk over the last month or so. Excuse me. So I guess this will kind of be the first look at the game in video form.
Mind the trash YouTube compression. This build takes place in another test room, and it's mostly a look at the weapons and basic mechanics. This is also the very first appearance of the cut totem weapon in the cigar. The cigar, on the other hand, gives you 1 morale instead of 1 HP. Another showcases the ability to pick up random objects, which the earliest builds don't have. In the Dusk goodies, there's also development screenshots. Over 500 of them. I'm not going to go over all of them because most of these are from the playable builds. Others are just developers goofing around like this mage with a very pointy hat, and few are just copies which happen to be there. Here are some of the ones not shown in the playable builds, and some interesting differences. The first bit are the works in progress from the game in development. The second bit being some changes. The third are humorous screenshots, and the last one was never been seen before. Let's look at those. We start with the works in progress of the test level and some nifty features. This here is the E3 level. Another is the PreAlpha. Works in progress of the Cut Bitter Coast level. Works in progress of Ghost Town. An early version of Old Time Religion, plus one with a skybox. A few screenshots of the nameless city being worked on. Creations of the Duke Mages, the Wendigos, Cowgirls, and the final game's enemies. The stages of the Guardian's creation. Eldritch Stephen Wade had a different look. The model is the same, but he was going to have a meaty red skin with a bunch of blue eyes and a regular mouth. Like a face instead of this eldritch monster shown. This one's quite disturbing, but do you know about the loading screen for episode 3 which featured this? Well, this is taken out of the skeletal remains of what's possibly a deer. Though exactly. I'm showing you a cropped image, but I made blurring that just to show context. Next segment, the changes. The menu and HUD of Dusk had many fonts planned to be used until the final game's fonts are selected. Several screenshots showing custom palettes. And various forms of the pause screen. Now for the humorous section. And this one here is the first section of Half-Life. You know, in Dusk. Another joke screenshot but with upscaled textures and bump maps. Simply called Dusk HD. A few pics of the Dusk enemies wearing Santa hats. And here's a snow version of Old Time Religion. And the last segment, Never Before Seen. This line of screenshots are from March 2016, taking place before the pitch demo with an updated old HUD. Now in case you're wondering, this bunch of screenshots here are from its earliest stage. This is quite fascinating to see how the game started out as one thing, but slowly evolving to another. It's like a metamorphosis. Very good stuff. But now we're moving on to the next chapter. It's time for the bit where I talk about the miscellaneous stuff. I'm surprised that the cutting room floor never thought about covering this game, but there's not much to talk about. To give you a recap on the cut weapons, they removed the chainsaw, the totem/unholy claw as weapons, the boss saw and hammer are downgraded as throwable objects, and the pump action shotgun evolved into the lever shotgun. We lost the meat lass, mangled zombie mages, and the lost soul type enemies. For the better in my opinion. Apart from the playable builds and development screenshots, in the goodies of Dusk, they released a couple free games, Leon's Reactions.
It's funny that you call it a priceless diamond because it gives you 50 morale, so it does have a price.
Dem Maymays, the New Blood team at QuakeCon, etc. I'm not going to go deep into those besides the development screenshots, raw sound, and image assets. However, most of the images included are in .craw files. Technically the PSD for the freeware art software Krita. There's nothing much here apart from interesting tidbits like the early names for the Fork Maidens, Wendigo, and Leathernecks dubbed Farmwife, Skinwalker, and Chainsaw Guy respectively. However, there's also an early logo of Dusk with an unused subtitle, The Cellar, though the rest of the game took place anywhere but a cellar. Another features the April Fool's versions of Dusk on Steam.
Is this hentai?
Now besides a couple joke lines and a civvy clip, there's some unused Andrew Holshaw music. Here's a sampler. Good stuff. Though some of these are actually demo versions of the final game soundtrack. Now before Holshaw was tasked to make the music, David Szymanski was going to do it himself. You heard one of them from the pre-alpha builds, but on his Bandcamp, he has 3 more tracks for you to listen in the Forgotten Dusk album. quite the unsettling tone from the game featuring low-poly Lovecraftian horrors. And Big John.
Come on! Big John! Yeah, that's me.
This is the part where we end things. Dusk is still going strong after 6 years since its first demo, and all the way to its Switch port. Without the House of Oshri, who knows what direction of Dusk or Szymanski would take after that. Szymanski went on to better things with New Blood and Company, getting involved with the Dread X collection, Dusk 82, the upcoming Thief with Guns, Gloomwood, and recently Iron Lung. Godspeed, Szymanski. However, we're not done with Dusk just yet. A little bit of the update here and there, but on June 12th, it's confirmed that Dusk HD is a thing. And it's a free update to Dusk, which allows you to switch from basic models to high-def models. Not just the weapons, but enemies too. I'm still waiting for that car combat game from last year. Don't you forget it. So, episode 5 is done. The next episode sends you out of the spooky Pennsylvanian locales and into the colorful world of RC racing. Make sure you follow the White Rabbit for more Lost Legends, and my subreddit r/Lost Legends. And with that, I'll see you later. Cue the music.